acoustics aren't excellent. When you get up, I ask you to state who you are, either your address or at least what town you live in. That's basically it. So feel free, have at it. Sure.
Yeah, Ken Hoffman,
oh, yeah,
12 Hill Street, about 2 blocks from this. 2 questions. What is the traffic count at the intersection of Spring and Morris during the rush hour? And compare that to the traffic count of the other roundabouts in Princeton and Rutherford and Westfield. I know Westfield happens to work and it's been there for decades. I know it's incorporated well into the community, but I would like to know if our traffic count is anywhere near compatible, because we seem to see a lot of cars up there. My second question is, are we talking about pedestrian bridges, for instance? Is that an option? After all, 1776 on the Green had a beautiful mall. It didn't work. It's a dead zone because those retailers were not able to survive because the people on the other side of the Green couldn't get across the street to, to where the shops were, and it died. So, I mean, we have to incorporate it. I think a bridge might help, and it certainly would help the traffic, pedestrian traffic across the roundabout. 2 questions.
Is everybody able to hear what he asked? Yeah. Okay.
So I'll summarize in case anyone didn't. The first question was about traffic volumes and how it relates. So in terms of the other intersections, the other roundabouts that were there, this is most closest to the Westfield one. There's a slight difference in terms of the capacity that we've added here. We actually have 2 lanes of entrance on multiple approaches. The Westfield, one of the approaches only has a single lane. We have a little bit more capacity, but the numbers are much closer to the Westfield one. I would state that no 2 roundabouts are designed the same way. Some of them have 4 legs, some have 3, some are aligned very evenly. In terms of, again, the Rutherford one has its own complications of trains being dropped off right next to it. But the Federal Highway Administration has an upper limit of where roundabout volumes basically max out, and we're below that upper limit. In addition, as part of this process, we have provided a detailed traffic study, and we've studied volumes that go as far as Speedwell and Early, all the way down to basically 287 and through this whole corridor. We've provided it to the town's traffic engineer to validate and make sure that not only does this have enough capacity for the current volumes and the volumes that we added per this development and the garage that's going across Morris, or that the parking authority is building, but also has additional capacity for even more traffic to be added to the region. So we believe, and again, you have your own town's traffic engineer evaluating it and checking it, that this roundabout is designed with sufficient capacity. The second question was pedestrian bridge. At this time, we are not proposing any pedestrian bridge, one that requires likely right-of-way on multiple sides. I know from a planning perspective, sometimes pedestrian bridges are seen as a negative because it pulls people off the street. But again, we only operate on our side of the street. I believe that we could have safe pedestrian accessibility across the roundabout. All those simulations that we utilized had pedestrian volumes in there, both existing pedestrian volumes and proposed pedestrian volumes, assuming that people living here, people working here may walk across towards the Green. People that may be near the Green may walk across to get to the retail shops. So we added pedestrian volume and found that it works well.
Okay. Ma'am.
Lucille Knappich, about Washington Avenue in Morristown. From some of your earlier comments, it doesn't sound like, I guess what I'm curious about is what is the retail you're proposing? Because it sounds like you're looking to relocate the retailers that are there at present to other locations, so they'll be scattered around town, not necessarily offered reasonable rents at this new location?
I'll let them answer, but I will say one thing about this, that I'm a business owner. I'm sure there are others in here. Like, one of the worst things is to shut down for a year or 2 years or whatever and to kind of destroy your momentum in that way. So I think that that's sort of some of what's behind this idea of relocation, or relocation rather than replacement.
Okay.
But I'll let them answer. I just know that the idea is to be minimally disruptive to the existing business operation.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm just
sure.
curious who's going to use this.
This is Peter Bronsnick.
I'm Peter Bronsnick with SJP Properties. To answer your question, the office tenants typically drive, and the town and the community can certainly have an influence in it as well, will drive the type of uses. So what we're envisioning are things that are more experiential, things that support and can be supported by the office use. But we've already heard from the existing retailers and some of the efforts to go ahead and relocate. One thing I want to be clear about on the retail, and I'm gonna open it up, and I know there are a lot of questions about the retail. These uses are not necessarily there in perpetuity no matter what. This development is not the catalyst for the displacement of these users. So they're not.
What is it, the market?
No, let me explain. If you let me explain, I will explain it. Each of these tenants has a lease with the landlord, correct? Those leases.
They're not being renewed. They're not allowed to renew that.
They're not allowed to renew pursuant to their contracts anyway. Does everyone understand that? They're not. Let me. The issue is every lease has a finite term. Okay? These aren't owners. They're not there in perpetuity. So if the current owner chose to bring in national retailers and refacade this mall, they could. That's reality.
But they're not.
They may. Oh yeah, they could.
Yeah. My aunt might be my uncle.
What's that?
But they're not being offered that option.
The fact of the matter is, Cluck U, 7-Eleven, whatever the use may be,
It draws
right?
unsavory people.
What's that?
It draws unsavory people.
What draws?
Instead of suits. You'd rather have suits than just your regular everyday people.
I'll take that comment under advisement. That has nothing to do.
You know
It's about services that support the community.
That is the
We
community.
do support. They're all Morristown people. That is the community.
Understood. What I'm trying to explain from a technical standpoint.
From a financial standpoint.
They are not entitled to that use in perpetuity. Please go ahead.
I was listening to you, let me just say this.
Yeah, please.
I do understand that that is private property.
Right.
And that you have the right to have whatever vision you want for your property. I do understand that. Frank alluded to the fact that Deloitte was a great, champion, and it was so good to attract somebody like that, a giant like that, to come to our town. Well, I view giants in different ways. I wanted to talk about Monarchs. Back in 1985, when I had a fire in my home, and everything was destroyed. I'm a severe asthmatic. And in the midst of all of this man came out to my house during the fire to bring me my medicine because he figured out that I didn't get out of the house with it. That, to me, is a giant.
That's right.
So it's those kind of things. And don't get me wrong, I understand things are going to change.
Yeah.
I think the project is beautiful. But since it's such a genius engineer, I don't like the 6-story building nor the 8-story, I gotta say that. And I don't think Morristown should start voting for 6- and 8-story buildings because then they're all gonna want it. But what I wanted to say that since we have such a genius engineer, how come they couldn't simultaneously put those businesses back there? Because I like the fact that when I go up to the strip, we call it the strip in our neighborhood.
Yep.
We love the strip. And we have a variety of things there that we can choose from. I can't go to Roots and get a steak. But I can go to the pizza store and get my kids some pizza.
Yeah.
Or I can go to Nacho Machos or Cluck U Chicken. This is in the second ward.
Yeah.
You're coming in a ward where we can't do some of the things that maybe some other people can do.
That's right.
So I think that needs, and I understand, Peter, that's your property. But I just think that we can have both of those things. We can have those buildings and we can still look after the little men. We can still look after the merchants. I think that we should be able to do both of those things. That's my opinion.
Good comment.
Man, back there.
I live on 39 Early Street. I just wanted to say that Morristown prides itself on being a sanctuary city. That plaza employs more people of color and different ethnicities than any part of that town. It's shameful that that has to be disrupted. We know 7-Eleven is being slated to be torn down.
No.
That means we'll have no convenience store. We pride ourselves on pedestrian traffic. Where are people going to walk to? We have no drive-through. You're going to have to drive to Morris Plains if you're lucky enough to grow as a town. We're not a city. Can somebody tell me what Deloitte has done for Parsippany? Don't they have a corporate office in Parsippany? What have they done for Parsippany?
Look, we love the food and the people who work there. That's what we love about it. We don't love the shopping center. I think we can all agree on that.
No, you can't.
We like going there. We like eating there. What I said at the outset,
Free parking.
and what I said at the outset was, I said an unprecedented effort to keep any retail that wants to remain here.
That's not what the business owners are saying that are there.
Well, you know what? I will tell you that that's happening, and it will happen. And I assure you of that. That's going to happen. Because I live here too. And I have to see you all on the street. I got neighbors, you know, like you all do. And I'm going to make sure that the developer, the town, the Morristown Partnership, that everybody works together to keep the retail that wants to stay here in Morristown.
That they can afford.
Right. Right.
Okay, regarding the roundabout is only effective at its next intersection, which is going to be the bottom of Spring Street and up at the Green. Morristown in 2017 issued approximately 60 speeding tickets. In 2018, after all this redevelopment, they issued almost 570. So now you tell me you're going to increase the speed because there will be traffic. I think that says something about the quality of life that we, you know, like if we're already increased our tickets for speeding alone, I haven't even read the rest of the statistics, at 500 plus, how do you think it's going to be in 2020?
I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you though that you looked at all the other intersections and you look up at Speedwell. And we all know Speedwell sucks up there. That intersection is tough. But there's a plan. I mean, it hasn't been executed. There's a plan, not our plan, it's the town has a plan to put another lane there.
Yeah, they got it, and those existing buildings have to tear down
No,
and move back.
not at all. That is not true. Because I have a client that's doing something over there. We need agreements from the existing business owners to give us some space on the street. Right. And then you could do the lane. And that'll ease up that whole intersection.
Then you can't walk anywhere anymore.
I'll let Phil, you want to talk about that?
It's a little on top. Those business owners will have to break down and move back 10 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we're not gonna, there's no vote tonight, there's no council here. This is a developer, a planner, business administrator, Jillian Barrett's here, some council members are here. We're here to listen. We can't do this, we can't engage in this conversation, we can't have a community-driven process without some back and forth. So I understand, I agree with you, it would be shameful. It would be shameful, but it's not being done, okay? So let us hear these concerns. So that's what I have to say about that. In terms of the traffic signal on Speedwell, we have permits to the state DOT. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried to deal with them. It takes forever. It aggravates all of us. We are working with the owners of the supermarket to try to find them a way to modify their building in a way that won't cost them anything. It may not work. It may not happen immediately. We're not going to force them into it. We're trying to provide an option. What we've gotten. No, LC Supermarket. Every single property along there, we've been dealing with this. This has been a 7-year plan, pushing when CVS got developed, pushing that back. Now with the next property, pushing that back. Now the last one, then I can get you the lane. Will it be? Are you a pedestrian or are you a driver? Raise your hand if you're a pedestrian. Okay, great answer. Great answer. So we have to have balance. And I'm trying to find you the most balanced solutions we can given the nature and character of this town. We have to move a lot of cars through this town. We can't ignore that. We have 1/3, 1 in every 3 cars is just passing through.
Don't add more.
Okay?
Why do you want to add more?
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
Now, everybody knows that cars give off carbon monoxide.
Yes.
You got headquarters, you got staff coming into the lower second ward. Now you're talking about putting another garage, that's carbon monoxide. It's an air quality issue too. Not only that, this town was never built for high rises. The sewer system has never, ever been brought up to sustain, because ever since they went headquarters, people have a lot of bathrooms. A lot of bathrooms. You just can't keep building and not deal with the and not deal with what's under the ground, you got to think about that.
Okay.
You really got to think about that. Not only that, there are some landlords that agree. You know the people that have been run out, we're building these apartments, but guess what? Everybody can't afford. Somebody talked about a guy living in a studio, but guess what? Maybe that's all he can afford. And I think that was very insulting to make it, because everybody don't make 6 salaries. And I think that is not a nice thing for you to have said about anybody.
I was talking about a young professional.
No, I think that's not.
I was not talking about anyone you think I'm talking about. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. So look, what I'm hearing is we need to make sure the sanitary system can handle this, which we will do, and around this carbon monoxide thing, because I'll tell you that we've done the measurements of those cars idling on Spring Street, and just sitting there and doing that, what they do every day, that's not very good either. So it's a matter of which is better.
Can we allow, maybe get some other questions from other parts of the
Hi,
room?
my name is Kathleen Hemmer. I live on King Street. I have a couple questions, and I want to be clear. You said there would be 1,000 workers. You said 60 to 70% would have cars, which to me is
I think you said 60% would go to 287.
60 to 70.
Would end up going back to 287 or something.
Okay, so I don't know how many actually car holders there are. It doesn't really happen. Is there only one entrance and exit off of Morris for this garage?
Yes.
That's the only way to go in and out of this garage?
There's an entrance in and out on Mars and an entrance in and out on Spring. The relocated Spring ties into the garage, so you have 2 ways to get into the garage.
And is this garage only going to be used for Deloitte or who's ever in this building? Is there going to be parking for people coming to these things?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be retail, just so everyone hears, because you're not on mic. There will be parking for retail in the garage.
So if 60, no, if there's 60 to 70% are heading to 287 and there's 1,000 people, how many is that?
Well, not every person drives. Again, the reason why this site is attractive to office is because the train station is right across the street. And you just heard all the apartments being built in town. This is also a draw for people that live in town.
So is there any statistics to show how many people from, how much square feet is this office building, office space?
It's just about 380,000 square feet.
380,000 square feet. So we have no statistics to show how many...
No, we know how many cars would go in and out of the site. The other thing to remember when balancing that, this site generates a lot of traffic, especially in the evening rush hours today. So when you're looking at a plus minus, the numbers is not 1,000 new cars coming to the road.
Right, but they're dispersing. They're not all going down their roundabout, turning back and going past my street to get to 287.
Correct. Correct. They're not all doing that. Yeah, and again, not everyone leaves work at the exact same time. This isn't blow the whistle and everyone out like Flintstone style. Yeah, and again, the simulation that you saw included the traffic that would be generated by the site.
And how many residential units total in this whole project?
None. 0.
Nothing on that Spring Street or whatever it is there? There's no residential.
We're only here for an office building. There is an existing building being built down Spring, but that's unrelated to this.
Okay.
There's plenty of residential. We've built the residential for 5 years. Yeah. It supports the residential.
Yeah.
Council President.
I just have to, but I'm not coming before you as Council President.
She's not coming before us as Council President.
I am a Sycamore resident, and I just have 2 questions, and one is a follow-up from the gentleman that asked about the traffic count. So I thought that when we were going to hear this presentation, it was going to be presented to the public, that we would have heard a little bit more about the actual counts, because describing the roundabout doesn't really give the public an idea of like that. We've done a townwide study, but we need to hear the numbers so that the public can understand, not just see on the slide. So that's one takeaway that maybe you guys can come back to in your next presentation. And then my second point is, when you talk about relocating the merchants, Do you have a specific place? Because some of those small merchants won't survive, let's say on South Street, or let's say on, if you even move them off of Marsh Street, like they're rooted there. So, and it's not just Second Ward residents that benefit from that strip mall. You know, you're talking about a lot of people that visit that mall. Even the people that are commuters that come in and out. So when you talk about relocating them, do you have a plan for relocation? Like where are you trying to go?
Is there anything else specific yet?
Frank, why don't you?
More detailed plan.
Yeah, I think that I would personally like some more time to work that out and get you something satisfying and specific.
It was unprecedented.
When we did, it will be unprecedented. When we wrote the Speedwell plan, we talked about providing subsidies either in the new facility when they were talking about rebuilding along Speedwell to provide reduced rents there, or the state requires relocation assistance. So there will be something. I want to get something more specific for you. I think the commitment is that it's going to be more than anything that's ever been done before. I think that's what Mr. Vitola meant by.
Well, I think Spring Street, the electrical building, that Columbia, all that might be a good starting.
And those do exist today. So it would be good to get these people up and running. Ma'am.
I'm a business owner in town. I live in Rockaway. I wonder how long is the contract from Deloitte? How many years? And what happens if they decide to leave?
The proposed contract would be a 15-year deal, and because they're a Fortune 100 company, we were comfortable with them from a development perspective. The other thing I do want to comment on, since you mentioned Deloitte, this is not conventional office in the sense that, I think the comment was, suits or how we think of office. This is a young population. This is a population that's coming from around the state, some of it from the east, will be utilizing the train station. And I think the train station is an underutilized asset, in my opinion, in town. It's something we could afford to see utilized more. So I do want to stress that you're going to see more reverse commuting and folks coming in for daytime activity, but to answer your question, it's a 15-year term.
And if they decide to leave after that, then it's a lot of empty space, right?
I mean,
yeah.
we have 15, they'll have 2 renewal options as well. So those are 2 5-year renewal options on top of that.
It does happen. There's Mars Plain just lost Honeywell. I mean, it's an important question.
Yeah, Honeywell is we don't have the time to get into Honeywell.
Anyway,
Honeywell is a particularly interesting situation.
I don't know about it, but
yeah, it was an incentive issue, but yes.
Right. So it's incentive.
Ma'am.
Renee, I just have a question. You mentioned about the roundabout, but the question is the multi-lanes. Wouldn't that have like some kind of yield confusion?
So I think the question was about the roundabout. Cindy, can you just put up a roundabout image up? So the way this roundabout has been designed, and it's, I would say, a newer and improved model. That's fine. It's difficult to see in the screen, but the way it works, the old-fashioned roundabout's a traffic circle. The issue was, if you were on the inside of the roundabout and you wanted to get out, it was very difficult. You're kind of trapped in there, you have this weave condition. People have seen European Vacation, they go round and round and round in London. That's not the way this roundabout's been designed. If you're on the inside lane, you either have the opportunity to get out at the next leg, so you have your ability to get out, or you become the outer lane when you approach the following leg. So you're never stuck on the inside. The way it's been designed, this is not a standard roundabout that's been designed for 100 years. This is a new model of roundabout that does this and fixes that issue where you're on the inside, you want to get out, you basically stop, wait there, try to get over. The way this works, you're the inside leg, you have the opportunity to get out, or you become the outside leg at the next approach.
How are you going to teach everybody that?
And again, the reason why we showed other towns, and there are, in Burlington County, there's about 10 of them, and they're building 2 in Passaic County, right in Clifton, not Clifton, in in Wayne Little Falls area. They are building more and more of these. You do signage, you do education. I mean, a lot of these places have outreach where you basically sit and say, we're opening up the roundabout next week. This is the presentation. You'll get a nixle that tells you to come to a meeting about roundabouts. There's a way to teach the roundabouts. There's signage you could use. Again, the idea here is that this becomes something that is useful in peak hours and not peak hours. It's useful when there's a lot of cars on the road and when there's not a lot of cars on the road.
Morristown.